So welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Congratulations again on outstanding. How did it feel watching that back?
I still got nervous seeing myself kind of block again, even though I know what happens. So a bit emotional as well.
Yeah. See that. Stuart, how was it? Were you looking to criticise on any of the terms?
I was actually watching the first 50 thinking there's still things we can fix on it, so I guess that's just coaching though. But yeah, you do watch it back, and you, as Alys says, you still don't actually think, is this going to happen? Or as Ross just said, you think you might die a little bit on the last 50, but you don't. You know, we all know the outcome, but the more you watch it, you see different little things every time.
Yeah. And how did that third turn feel?
It's quite weird thinking back to it now, but it's the strongest I've ever felt in a race, and it's the most confident I've ever felt behind a block. Like I remember feeling really calm and like in control, and I wasn't nervous for once. Like I just knew like that was my race. I knew how to swim it. I knew what to do in every point, like the process. I knew what to do at each point, and each turn. Like I've been working on my turns for so many months, like years, and I knew that was a strength. The underwater was my strength. And that's where a lot of other people fall down, is not having it underwater. So I knew that was like my little trick in my back pocket. Like I knew I was going to be able to do that. So having that underwater where everybody else was going to pop up early and I could just keep on going, I knew I was going to be able to do that. So sort of like a little sneaky thing, like I know I'm going to be able to do that. So that's the confidence that I had. Being able to do that.
So Stuart, describe to us how you guys got together. How, when, what happened?
It's about 9 years?
9 years ago.
9 years ago. Alys is from near Twickenham in London, and previous performance director Martin Woodruff had obviously identified Alys and wanted to get her into Swansea, because the reality is where Alys was in London, the swimming programs weren't providing what Alys needed to go to the next level. So Martin, basically, not long after I came into post, Martin had identified Alys to move her to give her the option to move to Swansea, and that relationship sort of stemmed from there in terms of the sort of the structure that Martin had already put in place. So it wasn't necessarily our doing, it wasn't Alys's choice to come to work with me. It was sort of, it's something that was happened as a result of the system.
I think, to
and
be
what
honest,
were the benefits? That you weren't seeing in Twickenham, that you were
it was the whole thing of moving into a performance centre as a whole. So the setup in Swansea of having a pool next to a gym with all the support staff involved, whereas I was coming from the typical kind of age group club where if you wanted gym you had to go to a actual gym somewhere else off site and work with a gym instructor that didn't necessarily know about swimming and just kind of put something together like haphazardly, and it wasn't specific to sport or specific to me. It was just like a bunch of exercises that this might help you, and it wasn't necessarily that gym instructor talking to my coach, and it was all a bit kind of mismatch and didn't really work. Whereas of course moving to a performance centre, everything is provided within the same circle and all the support staff talk to each other, and it's more specified and more kind of specific to my stroke even, not just to the sport of swimming. So there's a whole lot of benefits that go with that.
And the fact that you both came together, you know, you didn't seek each other out, as it were. How's your partnership? How's that relationship developed, Stuart?
I'll let Alys go first on that. She can have her say first.
Ladies first.
I think it's taken a very, very long time to kind of get to the point we are now. And I think a lot of people see on the outside that we get on really, really well now, but they don't see how long it's taken to get to that point. So yeah, we've known each other for 9 years, but if you go back to kind of Alys and Stuart 9 years ago, it would be pretty much strangers. We sort of just spoke to each other on poolside as any other kind of coach and swimmer would. But now we know each other well enough to know kind of how to get the best out of each other. So I feel I would be able to get the best out of Stuart in terms of his ability to coach me as an athlete, and he can get the best out of me as an athlete on a particular day, depending on how I'm feeling, how I'm producing in the session and all of that kind of stuff. But it's taken a lot of kind of communication, knowing how each other's personalities work, kind of knowing the good and the bad of each other, and knowing what our similarities are and being able to work well with those, but also respecting our differences and knowing how to work with those as well, and knowing that each other have good days and bad days, and kind of knowing how to work around those.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think something we've done in the last sort of 12 months is we've sort of set a set of values between us, which not only includes ourselves but other members of the coaching team as well, both in terms of S&C and input from other support staff, and those have just given us a structure that we sort of work to on a week-to-week basis that have allowed us to potentially increase the level of communication even further, and that sometimes you sit and have a catch-up with an athlete and you just veer off on tangents, but we've got a sort of pretty rigid set of values that we might tweak each cycle, but it gives us something to work with to find out where we actually at right now, where do we need to get to, what we're doing to get there. So that has certainly helped. I think one thing that we found out over the years is both of us have got a very dry sense of humour, but we're also both very stubborn people as a result of it. So
hence you making her go first.
Maybe. So there's something we've both had to learn to do, is realise that we can't just be stubborn with each other, because neither of us will back down.
We don't get anywhere.
And so there have been points in the past where we've had mediators between us to try and resolve differences, but I think those things have actually made the relationship stronger. But the key thing, I think, for me to say is it's not just, although it's my name and Alys's name up there, it's not. It's a whole load of other people that are involved in terms of getting that performance, not just us two.
And clearly that desire, that pursuit, that stubbornness to get the best out of, has you've worked on it to come up with an absolutely outstanding result on the day. So is there any burning questions from the floor for these guys?
I'll ask a question.
Come on.
Stuart and Alys, so what was different this season? What made that winning bit special? What was different? Because you've done that for a number of years and have been very professional, been to World Championships. But what was different this season?
I'm going to say my favourite word now, aren't I?
Yeah.
Consistency. I think the 12 months leading up to that point has probably been the most consistent work Alys has produced over a significant period of time, and for me that has been the pivotal change in terms of getting to that point. There's been a number of occasions in the past where we've been close, but that's the first time I think where we've really, and I think it's good. She's now experienced winning, and once you experience it once, it's a lot easier to stay there. I think we've talked about fourth so many times, haven't we?
Yeah.
And to break that mold of being fourth.
I've had my time of coming fourth quite a lot.
So we've lost the role of bridesmaid and finally become the bride, and now it's about continuing to develop consistency to allow her to do it again.
I think we played around with different things in training as well, and tried a few different things in the first cycle of training, and perhaps it's about just trying to be a bit more specific in terms of, I think as you do get older, it's about being smarter in training. And I spoke a lot about being patient when you're younger, but when you're younger you can be a lot more general and still get quite decent results, but I think as you do get older you can be more specific, and it's about training smarter, and you are going to be more prone to injury and illness and things like that, but that's when it becomes so much more important to train smart and be clever in how you train, and even more specific to kind of put that bubble around like injuries and illness, and train around them and encompass them, and your body better when you're older than you do when you're younger. So it kind of, you can train with, alongside injuries, or does that kind of make sense what I'm saying? I don't really have to explain it, but
15 months out from that, the previous 2 years we had been out to the Gold Coast to experience the conditions in the January and sort of get a rough idea of what the pull was like, but we also had the opportunity to go and train with Michael Ball, who's the girl who finished third. Emma McKeel trains with him, and Madeline Groves, who's not in the final, but she's an Olympic silver medalist, both on two fly. And I think that was a pivotal moment for Alys in terms of, hang on a minute, I can actually train with these girls and I can compete with them. And that, I think, just gave, you know, there was a reality check then of, they're not better than me, I'm as good as they are, and it's just about me now going to produce that on the day. So I think exposure to that in the training environment was massive as well.
And I think it would probably be fair to say you probably learned a lot from that with them as well, and brought home their style of training, knowing that I could train what they were training, brought home a lot of ideas from Michael Wall, and took that into our own home programme, played with it, tweaked it, and kind of ran with it. And I think, to be fair, we've kind of adopted a little bit of their style into our own home programme, and it's kind of paid off 12, 15 months later.
So that's the rosy side of things. Can we unearth a little bit about how these two bull-headed people came together and worked through their frustrations? Can you give us an example of when it absolutely didn't work, and then you reviewed it and put steps in place? Maybe to go down under and train with it.
For me, Commonwealth trials for Glasgow didn't go well. Alys was nowhere near what I thought she was capable of doing, and I remember vividly the conversation we had in the hotel afterwards, and I put my hand up and said we haven't done enough work and we needed to change things. And I think from that day forth we saw a massive difference. So the reality is for Glasgow, for Alys, she got onto the team almost via the back door, via a relay, but finished fourth. So in the 6 months from trials to there, we made a massive difference in terms of the workload and how we did certain things. And for me, that was one of the low points, but also I think one of the best points in our relationship. And Alys realised if I did something wrong, I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to admit to it. I'm not going to cover it over.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think there's been a few like little. I would never say there's ever been like a massive, huge bust up. It's always been resolved within a week. And sometimes we're now at the point that we won't let it get to a week to take time to resolve that long. If there's ever been an issue, we now know we're both the type of stubborn people where like, oh, if he's annoyed me, I'm just going to walk away and be silent. And he's the same, like if I've annoyed him by doing, I don't know, whatever, but he'll just walk away and be silent. And we both know if the other's done that, it's going to piss the other off even more. And that's when something will just take a week long to resolve, because we'll both be too stubborn to go and say, oh look, okay, you've done this and it's annoyed me. It's kind of like a teenage relationship really, like, in that respect. it is like, but now it's taken like months of Kath's work kind of really to sort of say, okay, look, you're not teenagers, you're both grown adults, like just be the bigger person and go and speak to the other, like communication, just talk. And in that respect, it doesn't take a week long to resolve anymore. But just be like stupid little things.
Yeah, excellent. Next question. Fergus.
This one for Alys. You talked about standing on the blocks with that kind of confidence,
Yeah.
you know, and so how to kind of self-manage leading up to that? Because you know, doubt always creeps in.
Yeah.
You've always got those little niggles. How did you manage yourself?
I think, again, Kath is to blame, to thank for this. It's been a lot of work with Kath and kind of going through a lot of practice of, doesn't come easy, but a lot of practice of mindfulness, the self-talk, just real, like it sounds silly saying it out loud now, but it'd be little things like just telling myself I'm okay, and I can do this, and it's all the confidence things of training. Like I do that day in, day out, like every day. I've done it for 20 years. Like I know what I'm doing. I know how to swim 4 lengths fly. I do it so often. So why can't I just do it now? I can do it. Like I know how to do it. It's fine. Like, and it would be just little things, repeating that over and over to myself. Like I know how to do this. These girls, they might not. They don't know how to do this. I know how to do this. And like I can't control what they're gonna do. I can only control what I can do. So there's no point worrying what they're gonna do. Like in that race, when I dived in and realised my goggles were fogged up, I thought, oh, here we go again. Like my goggles fog up in training quite a lot, and I rarely see the wall in training. Like I put the pads in the pool to train in so that I can spot the walls easier to make it like I'm racing, but my goggles fog up in the pool and I rarely ever see anything when I'm swimming in the pool training anyway, so why is it different if it happens when I'm racing? So it's straight back to default, count my strokes. I do that in training anyway, so you know, I can only control what I'm doing in that race, so I don't worry about what they're doing. It's taken quite a lot of practice of doing that to actually get to the point where that little voice on my shoulder goes, yeah, but you can't do it, it's going to be hard, it's going to hurt, it's awful, it's fly, your shoulders, you're going to sink, you're going to die. But just practice and like repeating it over to myself, like, no, you're going to be fine, it's only 4 lengths, it's 2 minutes of your life, you'll be fine. But yeah, it gets there, and that is the most relaxed I've ever felt and in control. And yeah, then I'm not like this on the block, like, ugh.
And one of the things we spoke about before we ever left for Australia was that on race day, Alys wanted everyone around her to be relaxed, because we all know there's, if someone else gets pent up and gets nervous, it rubs off.
Very much.
So even on race day, before you went in the call room, we had our chat before you actually went to warm up that day in terms of what we're going to do, and all I said to her before the race was control, build and roar, with 3 words. And that was all we
I think
mentioned.
I was thinking when I was doing my priming with Spence, my S&C, literally before I go in the call room, I was just thinking attack and relax. I was thinking attack on like when I was actually physically doing the priming, and then as I was like walking back, I was doing like a McGregor kind of relax, yeah, like just thinking like real chill. And I was like attack again, and then just relax. So I was literally just trying to think chill things, like I'm in control, I know what I'm doing. And yeah, literally when I spoke to you going into the call room, I was like, I know what I'm doing, I'll be fine. But normally we'll have like a bit of an in-depth chat, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, go through the whole process, but on that one,
Can I ask you another question now? Sorry. So, you talked about 4 years earlier in Glasgow, and you talked about 4th place. How easy would it have been to give up after Glasgow, to kind of go, you know, I'm 23, we've been there, whatever, and to go, you know, I come forward to Commonwealth, and, you know, I know how hard it's been at times to make a break into British teams, or to find things to keep you motivated moving forwards, because of that kind of whole, once you pass 21, you kind of look at the world differently.
Yeah.
So can you just kind of run through, like, it's been time in your career the last, you know, 4 years, and you thought, like, 4 years is a really long time.
It is a long time. I think after Glasgow, I was actually really pleased that I came 4th. At the time, I remember coming out thinking, oh my god, I came 4th. I was 0.18 of a second off a bronze. That was the best result I've ever had in my career at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, I came that close to a medal. And I was, I'd say, a complete unknown at that time, like nobody knew who I was. And I was over the moon. And I think it took about 6 months after, and I was like, I started to get pissed off. I was like, why didn't I get bronze? I was 0.18 off the bronze, why didn't I get bronze? And I think that was enough to give me the hunger to carry on. I've had many opportunities throughout my years of swimming, which would be enough for me to say, okay, now's the time to quit. I've had enough injuries to be reasons to say enough's enough. But I've always had in the back of my mind the goals and the reasons why I started swimming, and that's been a more of an overriding factor than the injuries for me to carry on going. So I've got things that I still want to achieve within my sport and within my career that override my age, the injuries, the horrible early mornings, the grueling training, all of the horrible, miserable parts of my sport that make me still want to get up in the morning and still want to get in that pool. So yes, there are dark days and it's horrible and it sucks and it's miserable, but I still want to achieve those goals in my mind. So yeah, I have been doing it a long time and it's still horrible some days, but I still want to do it.
Just a little bit earlier than that, how did you manage when you first met, from sort of not from the beginning of the success and the recognition of when success is available to you? How did you manage it from as an 18-year-old coming up to Swansea, you're coming together, you're two stubborn people, I'm telling you what to do, you're listening to you, I don't believe you. How do you manage that early relationship? First 18, 19, 20 at the grade, first 2 years of it?
think it was just like any old other swimmer and coach, wasn't it? It was just like a standard swimmer coach.
Yeah, I think that the reality is where we are, we get a number of swimmers who come into the programme for 3 years because there's a university connected to it.
Yeah.
So for a lot of swimmers, you only get a snapshot of their swimming career that you're trying to help them with. So for the first probably 3 years with Alys, you almost have the same idea that this athlete's going to be here for 3 years and then they're probably going to go, or they're probably going to call it a day or whatever else. So potentially in the first bit, you don't get as close as what you have, well, you obviously would be, as we are 9 years down the line. So yeah, it was very much more of a traditional swimmer coach who was just a member of the team. But obviously as time has gone on, Alys has seen a number of her training mates arrive and go, yet she's still there. And I think that's just that time has helped build the relationship necessarily beyond what your average 3-year university student swimmer relationship would be.
Have you been able to identify then what made you stay there at that point in time? Because it would have been, could it not have been easy to go to, you know, exactly said you've got 3 years, I'll go off and do something else. So there was something
This
was
made
there
me
to say,
stay.
no, I'm going to stay.
Yeah,
And we're going to work together and we're going to fight through our difficulties.
You're right. I think for me, I've had a lot of like injuries and health sort of things, that have, like setbacks, shall we say. And to be fair, Stuart has never ever said to me, I think you're done, I think you're making the wrong decision by staying in the sport, I think you need to look elsewhere, or anything like that. And I've probably not been the easiest swimmer to coach. I'm not straightforward. I'm not straightforward by any means, and to be fair, he's never said like you're too much hard work for me. I prefer an easier swimmer that's straightforward, just swims up and down, doesn't complain. And I think I would be too much work for a lot of other coaches. So I think for that reason it works. He's prepared to coach me, and it works. So I've never felt the need or wanted to look anywhere else.
I think also in that, where to touch earlier on values, and there were things that went on before Commonwealth Games which we won't go into, but one of Alys's values is loyalty. She's quite a loyal person and expects the same of other people. So I think through the 8 or 9 years, she's seen people who train in her group jump ship to go to train with someone else, even within the same pool at that point. And it doesn't compute in Alys's head that that's the right thing to do. So loyalty is obviously one of the big values, and there's a lot of swimmers around, probably beyond just swimming, where loyalty is kind of nothing.
I'd also say that for me, I think I've only ever had 2 long-term coaches in my whole swimming career, and I feel that to get your best results, you need to stick with a coach for a long period of time. I don't personally believe in a lot of swimmers, maybe athletes as well, like other athletes in other sports, tend to jump around coaches an awful lot, and I think it's very difficult to expect good results when you're jumping around loads of different programs very continuously, like year on year, going to loads of different programs. I feel, in myself anyway, it's going to be, you're going to be able to expect a lot better from yourself if you're more settled within the same program, within the same coach, like having the same kind of consistency. It's that word, it's that magic word. Consistency of having the same people around you, the same support staff, the same environment is obviously going to lead to a better expectancy of better results, in my opinion anyway. That seems to make sense to me. So I wouldn't.
Gentlemen.
I think that's an inspiration for everybody here. We've all got one like you know, somewhere. And loyalty is important. Most of all, I think your coach has to believe in you.
Yeah.
And you have to believe in him or her or whatever. But that's not enough sometimes.
Yeah.
Nowhere near enough. It's the people around you that secure you and which pathway you take. And you find that from juniors, you get to a time when they're burned out, but completely.
Yeah.
You know, and we're looking other avenues where we can take perhaps burned out athletes and settle them down, bring them back into another sport, And you're a classic example of staying there and saying, I can do a bronze medal place in Glasgow would have been fantastic, for you to say 4 years, I can do that, and you've done it. And it is an inspiration for all coaches.
So what he's saying is triathlon's next, and then after that, and then after that is rowing. At the back.
Hi, you're obviously not a very old coach at the moment. You can tell by that you still do up there and operate. So I'm assuming that you were quite young when this relationship started out. How did you develop yourself to be able to keep up, I suppose, and to keep yourself going?
I think Ross, our performance director, is sat there. I think one of the things that we've become better at is evaluating ourselves in terms of what we're good at and what we're not good at. And I know for a fact I'm a doer. I can't sit in a room and learn. It just doesn't work. I'll just switch off, my brain goes somewhere else, start doodling, and I don't get anything from a day like that. I'm much more of a person who would rather go and do the job and either learn from someone else who stood beside me, like Michael Ball, and learn from that person, or make the mistake and realise, yeah, that didn't work, we won't do that again. Whereas I know a lot of other people, my brother for example, he's very much a sit in a room, much more academic, and he can sit down, read a book and work out how to do it that way, but I'm much more hands-on, would rather learn by doing the process rather than necessarily just reading a book. So I'll be the first to put my hand up, I've made plenty of mistakes along the way, but so long as you learn from them, those mistakes are fine. It's about putting the correct athlete with the correct coach. So there could be an athlete who's officially meant to work with me, but actually has a better relationship with Adam, so we'll go with Adam rather than necessarily with me. If he's got a better key to unlock that padlock, that's what we'll do.
And longevity, how long do you think, because it can't be a straightforward, easy way, as you express, so how long have you got in a person to be able to coach at that elite level? Is it?
To be honest, I've never really thought about it. While I'm still learning and still got a passion for it, I don't see why I would change that. And I think even for me long term, I think having been a PE teacher and left teaching to get into coaching full time, I've already made that jump from one career to the other. And I think for me to go back to teaching or something like that, I'd be too much like hard work. So I think for me in terms of coaching, I think I will always be involved in coaching. Whether I would stay at the elite level right through till retirement, that would be a different conversation. But I think for me, while the passion and the hunger is still there, I've never even considered the conversation of what do I do next.
Just following on from that, how do you ensure then that you are fit and well and able to do the job? Because it's a full-on job, isn't it? Coaching the role you do. So how do you make sure that you're able to get up every day, be in the pool at God knows unearthly hours, times that you get there, to ensure that you are, I guess, increasing your lifespan as a coach as much as possible?
It's having an outlet, having something else to do. Alys is a drawer, so I know she can doodle. She's got a dog, she goes for a dog walk. I'm always been into music, so my switch off is to go in my music room, studio, whatever you want to call it, and swimming doesn't exist in there. So there might be rooms in the house where you've got a picture up, or you've got a trophy or a medal or something or other that's related to what you've done or what one of your swimmers has done, but that room has nothing to do with swimming in it. So it's my way of being able to completely switch off and just bury yourself in something completely different, and I think that's really, really important. I used to get in trouble when I come home at night. Well, how was your day? It was all right. Well, why do you not want to talk about it? Because it's finished, it's done. It doesn't need to be talked about. I don't need to spend my evening recycling the whole day. So yeah, it's just being able to switch off and finding what allows you to switch off. I can't read a book, I'm not a reader, so music is definitely my way of switching off.
And Alys, what have you discovered about yourself on this journey?
I think I'm more stubborn than I thought I was. That's quite a question, isn't it? What have I discovered about myself? I'd say I'm hard looking. Might say different. I don't know. I think I definitely just go with stubborn in all areas of my life, and my goal setting, and I think the things we've already covered, like loyalty and passionate and all of that. I think I'm just very goal driven.
And what does the immediate future look like? Tokyo definitely on the horizon.
I'm not going to say either way because it's difficult. I hate to say because of my age, but I don't like planning too far in advance because you never know what's going to happen. But I would definitely say it's a possibility. Considering the time that I did in Gold Coast, it makes it a definite possibility just to qualify, like, let alone do anything else. So, and if I just want to qualify, all I need to do is what I've already been doing. So it makes it very much a possibility. So that's obviously a childhood dream to be an Olympian. So
I think one of the not mistake, but we hear of athletes all the time. Oh, my goal is Tokyo. Which is great, but you need to qualify for Tokyo first. Yeah. So you've got that end goal, but let's be a little bit more realistic and focus on the process of getting there. So for a British swimmer to qualify to go for an Olympic Games isn't easy. So
it's often much harder than actually
producing a performance when you're there. So and between the two of us, we've only ever up until Gold Coast was talked about Europeans this summer, and that's as far as we've planned. And at that point, the ball was very much put in Alys's court that she's got to come to me and say, I'm going to commit to another 2 years, this is where we're going to go, or whatever else. And there are things that we will do differently that we know we tried this year as a bit of a calculated risk, that if that's the case, we will do maybe for even longer next year with a view to the performance coming out in April the following year.
And we're going to hear from the bosses later on, straight after lunch. What do you guys need from your hierarchy to achieve those goals, to go to the Europeans fit and healthy and well and able to compete and maybe dream of Tokyo? Now's your opportunity to answer.
Go on, Al, get your wish list out.
Well, I don't.
Funded.
Money. No, I can't really. I feel uncomfortable asking for things, and I can't really think of anything I would ask for because, to be honest, we have such a great setup that I can't think of anything.
So more of the same then,
just more of the same.
Rather than a relaxation away from
just continued
the performance
support,
drive that you've had to a.
Well, if what they've done so far is given the results that they've got, then surely more of the same is going to give more of what they've got.
Yeah.
But in terms of, for me personally, in terms of things that will help to make us better, for me is more continued exposure to the likes of Michael Ball, someone like that I can relate to, because there's no point in putting me in a room with someone I've got no respect for, because I'm just going to think you're about that and I'm not going to listen to you. So yeah, it's continued exposure. But for me, the one thing that was massively different this time compared to Glasgow or to Delhi is we had medal targets thumped down our neck for the 2 years before it. And it started off as the Sport Wales medal target, then it was the Swim Wales medal target, then it was the Performance Director's medal target, then it was your medal target, the closer you got to the Games. And we didn't have that pressure this time, and I think that made a massive difference in terms of just allowing us to be able to go and do our job of coach.
I was just thinking then, I don't know if this is totally relevant or not, but just within the sport of swimming, and just thinking back to some of the interviews I did in Gold Coast, and they were asking about preparation, and one of the things I have to say with Swim Wales in particular is that I feel like we are the best at doing preparation camps, and in comparison to, say, England, or I don't know Scotland as much, but England, I don't know how many preparation camps. They're not known for doing any kind of prep camps, warm weather camps or anything like that, any team building or anything of the sort. But I know Swim Wales are so good at doing preparation camps, and before Australia we'd done 2 prep camps out there, and I think, you know, basically more of that is so good, so helpful for all of the kind of squads and stuff, for any kind of major meet that we're heading towards. To do the kind of preparation stuff is so invaluable to us, and I think that actually really helped towards the success that we had.
So the next 3 winters we're going to Birmingham.
I think there's a bus to Birmingham. More questions from the floor, Flick.
You mentioned, I guess, a couple of practitioners, and Kath being one of the science and medicine practitioners that supported you. In your eyes, what makes an excellent science and medicine practitioner?
I think it's just the ability to be able to get on with them and being down to earth, being able to have a bit of a laugh. What's the word I'm looking for? Just being able to be on the same level with you, and being able to kind of understand and relate to what you're sort of saying, but not be too serious or kind of patronise you in any way, but actually get a point across, or kind of get you to view it in a different light, or come to your own conclusion in a different way, or I don't know, because I'm awful at answering my phone. Like, Kath will back me up on this. I'm terrible at answering my phone, but fair play, Kath never gets annoyed. I'm sure she does at home. She's like screaming at her phone for me never answering, but she'll never tell me. She'll never tell me that she's annoyed. But it's just like little things like that. Like, I'm sure she feels like she's nagging me sometimes, but she'll never tell me. So it's just little things that just make it easy to flow. That they're helping you, and you feel like they're helping you, but they're not nagging you. Does that make sense?
I think it's like the little comment I made before about each swimmer is a padlock, or each athlete's a padlock, and you've got to find the key to open that padlock. And there's no harm in saying that I don't necessarily have the key for that padlock, and if there is another practitioner who can do the same thing, be willing to say this one might be a better fit for someone else. Because I know we've had experiences in the past where Alys has come to me and I just can't work with this person. So it's
never like, it might just be a personality clash. It's never, I was going to say it's not personal, it's just personality, but that doesn't make sense. But if you know what I mean, it's never, it's not to be mean, it's just, you just don't work.
You just don't connect
together, you just don't connect.
Yeah.
So it's just having that option of being able to find someone that can do it.
One more question? Anybody? Go to the back.
Okay, just sort of probably reframe the question from there a little bit, but obviously you guys have had 9 years to build a coach-out relationship, build a support team around you, which has been a key part of success. I suppose from your perspective, the organisations around you, so Swim Wales, University, Sport Wales, what they've done that's like really helped that process, and has there been anything at times that has hindered it, and what those key learnings do for you guys?
I think the system building around what we do has helped massively. So we're quite fortunate, and we do get exposed to stuff on a regular basis, whether that be competing or training. I think it does make a massive difference going into that Commonwealth pool 2 years before it. You're walking into somewhere you already know, so that's not an alien environment. So that's one less piece of nervous energy you're not wasting. So the system that's put in place and that prior planning, that performance on that day wasn't planned on that day. That performance was planned 18 months, 2 years out, 3 years out. So it's what is the long-term goal, and when do you start working towards it? So it's the whole system that's put around it, and we're very fortunate within Swim Wales and with Sport Wales to have the people who can either come in and do their little bit and go back out, or on it all the time and are only a phone call away if we really need that help.
Yeah, I just think the whole centre that we have works together to make all the relationships work in like a little harmony. Yeah. So if there's one that's sort of not quite singing together, we can, you know, the example at the moment, we're all kind of like trying to work together. I have like a tiny little ongoing injury, which is manageable, absolutely fine, but instead of me talking to Stu about it and Stu talking to my S&C and then my S&C talking to me, we're able to all talk together in one meeting at one time, and we can get the doc involved as well, and he can come down from the marina, and
If he remembers. Yeah.
we can all talk together in the same room. Everyone's on the same page, and that can help solidify the relationships and get everybody on the same page, and everybody knows what everybody's doing. And I think just the setup with the support staff in that environment just helps those relationships work.
But I think you've hit on a point there that whilst that works in the athlete coach immediate unit, that can work on a systematic scale as well.
Yeah.
So if we're going to exploit this uniqueness that we've got in this principality and the closeness and how everybody knows each other, if we expand that up to a system level and having the right people in the room at the right time on a regular basis talking about what the little injury problem is, you're going to get the best performance that you can achieve from a systemic perspective.
Yeah.
So I think we should give these two a massive round of applause.